Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today we have a little bit of a treat for you guys. We're bringing on former Bengal and current Rock Nation sports agent, John Thornton. John, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to Bengals fans, so I'm glad to do it.
Appreciate it, man. Definitely. So we know that the Bengals are going into free agency, and there's a lot of questions from the fan base on how certain aspects of free agency kind of work. So with you, I felt like you were the perfect person to bring in, being that you actually played for the Bengals as well as negotiated with them as an agent. So I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, and the first one that I kind of want to throw out to you is, you've obviously been on both sides, like I stated, as a player and an agent. What were some of the key differences with free agency as a player versus your experience as an agent?
Well, I mean, obviously as a player, you don't know the business side of it. You don't know how the team operates. You're really just worried about yourself. You look at the team and see if that's a place you want to play. And it was a different climate back then. The Bengals were not a good team. They were coming off of a 2-14 season. Marvin Lewis was brand new. And at the time, I knew a lot of players here just because some guys I played with in college or just playing against them for 4 years. So it was a little bit different for me as a player. But now as an agent, it's not my choice. It's my player's choice whether they want to be there or not. I know all of the front office members, all of the coaches, so I have a relationship where, we all trust each other. But at the end of the day, it comes down to dollars and cents. If my philosophy fits their philosophy, not necessarily mine, but my players, and trying to just get it to fit, because if the player really wants to play there, you try to make it happen. Or if you see a better deal out there, you got to leverage that. And then the player has to make a tough decision. So player, it was all me. It was personal. Now as an agent, it's my client, and then trying to give him the best advice I can give him and let him ultimately make the decision at the end.
Right. I totally agree with that. So like you stated before with the philosophies, the Bengals front office kind of has a philosophy where they, in a sense, make deals with lower sums of guaranteed money. But generally, they've honored those contracts with Leon Hall we've seen in the past. Do you believe that this strategy is something that kind of hinders their ability to land some of those free agents?
No, it doesn't. I think, like I said, it's about trust, and it's about putting language in a contract to protect your players. Right. So one thing we don't want to happen is injury. What happens if the player gets injured? Right. It's another thing that if the team decides to move on from him within the next year, if they say, well, you're going to get this amount as a signing bonus, and then you'll get this as a workout bonus, and you get this when you report to camp, then you'll get this salary during the season. Now, what if they move, something strange happens and they decide to cut you before the season starts? Right. Now free agency is dried up, and you're like, hold on, well, you promised me $9 million if I made the team, and so there's things like that you don't want to happen. Sometimes you got to take a leap with the Bengals just with the guarantee portion of it. Right. But they do have a track record of honoring contracts, not releasing guys at a certain amount of time. So yeah, you got to balance that. And like I said, the Bengals don't sign a lot of free agents from the outside their team because of that. I said that last year because other teams may guarantee the first 2 years or for 3 years. And as a player, that's guaranteed money, whether you're hurt or not. And, it's just something to balance. And so the guys that are there with the Bengals usually sign a year early when they get their big contracts. And you don't have to deal with other teams. So you're worried about going into the season getting injured before you hit free agency. So that's why you'll see the Geno Atkins and the A.J. Greens and all of the big contracts they've signed. Those guys usually sign a year before where they're not worried about those type of guaranteed dollars because they're going to be on the team and you just work it in. So it is a balance, but I don't think it's, the guys in the Bengals usually play out their deals a lot longer than the guys that may go to another team that has more guaranteed money. So it's a good balance, but it is something to weigh when you have multiple teams offering you contracts.
Right, totally. So it's believed that owner Mike Brown has kind of taken a step back and kind of pushed a conglomerate of Katie Blackburn, Marvin Lewis, and Duke Tobin. Basically, he's assigned them the rights to basically run the front office operations. So can you explain in which capacity each one of those members are, and what they do kind of during the free agency process? And does Mike Brown still have the final say when all things are said and done?
Yeah, it's his team, so I'm pretty sure he has final say. I don't know the complete inner workings, but I'm pretty sure Mike Brown has to sign off on everything. I think they all take part in each part of the signing period, whether it's free agency or the draft. Like, I know with draft picks, like I may deal with Paul Brown Jr. You know, I dealt with him on Mario Offer, who was a 7th round pick a couple years ago. Somebody else may handle the 3rd and 4th round picks, and somebody, you know, so I think they all have great responsibility within each other, within the organization. And even in the free agents, like I may deal with Troy Blackburn on some, and you know, Katie on others, but I think they have a really good working relationship, and they all stay in good communication. Mike Brown, he attends every practice, he knows everything that's going on. So there's actually a lot of teams that are trying to use this model with what they do. I know a lot of fans get frustrated and people think that Mike's either too involved or now he's passing it off or it's too cheap. But they have a good process, and I just think it's not the typical GM does everything. I think it's they have a good family approach.
And I mean, like you said, I think some of the fans I myself am a fan, but I kind of admire what they've built there and the structure that they have, because it's done nothing but breed success. So I definitely agree with you on that, that using that strategy definitely has helped them rather than hurt them. So leading on to the next question, let's talk about your agent role, and what do you consider to be some of the most important factors when you're determining a landing spot for one of your players?
Money is always number one. I mean, to me, when you get to that point, you know, you got to get as much money as you can get while you're playing. So that's number one. From being a player to now as an agent, my job, they look to you for the contract. So you start to look at each situation. You try to leverage your players in the best possible way. And if you have multiple teams offering the same amount of money, now it's, hey, where do you want to play? Do you want to play close to home? Do you want to play in the warm weather? Do you want to play in a dome? Do you want to return back to your team? So there's multiple levels of the free agency, but number one is we want to find out where your player is going to get the most possible money that he can get, so he can make that decision on, okay, do I want to just go play here or go play there, you know? And then there's different levels, you know. Sometimes a guy, you know, I'll use Michael Johnson for an example. When Mike first became a free agent, he got the franchise tag, so he got a big chunk of money. You know, he's from Selma, Alabama. So what we've learned with him is that he's not really a guy that's just going to go for the top deal. Now, with the Tampa offered a great deal. You know, most guaranteed money, not even the most guaranteed out of everybody, but it was a great situation. And so he went there for a year. It didn't work out. And then it became for him like he wanted comfort. He wanted something that he knew. So I learned through that process that some guys aren't really trying to grab the biggest contract, you know, and you can't, as an agent, let your ego get involved, because you want to say, I got my guy the best deal, but at the end of the day, you work for the player. And if the player says, I want to go here, as long as you let them know, hey, this team's offering more, you want to come here, okay, then that's you've done your job, you know. So I think being a player helped me realize that, listen, man, I'm not going to beat my chest over a deal if my player's not beating his chest over the deal, you know. So you got to take ego out of it and give them the best deal. But I would say money's most important, and then if you can get them to a comfortable situation. And I always feel like players should go where they can use their talents and play well. You know, if you get a guy a big contract somewhere where he's uncomfortable and the system's not good for him, he's not going to last there anyway. So, you know, back again, a guy like Mike can play here in Cincinnati where he's comfortable, he knows the system, he's going to be more productive here.
Right.
So I mean, play longer here than going somewhere else that don't really know him. May want him to get 12 sacks a year. I mean, that's not really his thing. You know, he affects the game in a different way. So as an agent, you got to weigh a lot of things. But number one is the money and that your client can earn, and you got to put that on the table for him, and then let him decide as far as comfort, city, stay with your old team, like what's more important to you. And you know, obviously guys like Mike, you know, he's really big on family and really big on comfort, and the Bengals feel.
Okay, cool. Appreciate that.